At 3:17 a.m., Celia wakes to rain pouring through the ceiling of her dream home. 3 months into ownership, her foundation is cracking, the basement is flooding, and the family members who sold her the house have betrayed her trust. But Celia won't stay the victim for long. The thunder shook Celia awake, but it was the dripping that kept her from falling back asleep. A slow, steady rhythm that didn't belong in her brand new home. She clicked on the bedside lamp, blinking at the water darkening her ceiling. At first, it was one spot, then another. Then three, forming a constellation of betrayal above her bed. Water spattered onto her grandmother's quilt, soaking through the stitches made by a woman who had built her own house with her own 2 hands. Celia scrambled, heart pounding, grabbing a mixing bowl from the kitchen and sliding it under the worst leak. Lightning flashed, illuminating her once pristine bedroom, now a battlefield of shadows and spreading stains. The house was supposed to be her triumph. 10 years of saving, of packing lunches in reused containers, of saying no to vacations, of living in a cramped studio while her friends upgraded to condos. This house was her reward. 3 months in, it had already turned into a nightmare. The rain outside picked up, hammering the roof like an angry mob. Then came the sound she dreaded most, water splashing onto hardwood somewhere beyond her room. She raced into the hall. New stains blossomed across the ceiling there too, the bathroom, the guest room. Every step revealed more leaks, more betrayal. She grabbed every pot, pan, and bucket she owned, scattering them across the house like a desperate soldier in a losing war. Her chest tightened. The basement. She whispered the word like a curse. She barreled down the stairs, gripping the railing Samuel had boasted about. Solid oak, sis. Built to last generations. The light flicked on, revealing water crawling down the foundation walls in sinister rivulets. The puddle on the concrete floor spread wider by the second. The water heater sat in 2 inches of murk, the circuit breaker box dangerously close. Celia's breath came sharp and shallow. Just 3 months ago, she had stood in this same basement, clutching her new keys, Samuel's arm heavy on her shoulder. He had told her this was the deal of a lifetime, that she would be crazy to pass it up. Now, staring at the rising water, she wondered if the crazy one was her for believing him. Back upstairs, Celia tore through the kitchen drawer, pulling out the folder Samuel had given her with all the documents. Inspection reports, repair certificates, disclosures. Her hands shook as she spread them across the table, the rain outside slamming against the windows in sync with her racing heart. The roof certification said, excellent condition. 15-year minimum life expectancy. The foundation report read, no evidence of water intrusion. Lies. All of it. She looked at the unfamiliar signatures, the official stamps that somehow felt counterfeit, and something cold uncurled in her stomach. This wasn't bad luck. This was deception. Memories crowded in. Her mother's voice last Thanksgiving. At your age, you should have owned a house years ago. Your cousin Teresa already has 2. Samuel's confident grin. Trust me, I do this for a living. You're getting a steal. Her father's silence at the closing table, the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. It all clicked together, now jagged pieces forming a picture she didn't want to see. The house wasn't just falling apart. Her family had sold her the rot with a smile. And as the storm raged louder outside, something inside Celia shifted. Fear gave way to fury. She wasn't just fighting leaks anymore, she was preparing for war. The morning after the storm, Celia sat at her kitchen table surrounded by a fortress of paperwork. Coffee went cold beside her, untouched. Each page felt heavier than the last, weighed down with betrayal disguised as official forms. She flipped through the roof certification again, eyes catching on the inspector's license number. Something about it nagged at her. Pulling up her laptop, she typed it into the state's online verification system. The result hit like a punch, expired 3 years ago. Her pulse quickened. She tried the foundation inspector's number. This time, no record existed at all. Another search on the roof repair company led nowhere, no business registry, no website, not even a phone number. A ghost company, conjured up on paper to give her false reassurance. Her chest ached as she pushed the documents aside, the memory of Samuel's voice ringing in her ears. I'll handle everything, sis. You don't need to stress over the details. She had trusted him because he was family, because he carried himself like a man who knew the business. But now, staring at the fraudulent paperwork, she realized that trust had been weaponized against her. She picked up the disclosure form, scanning the neat paragraphs where defects should have been listed. No evidence of water penetration, no roof damage observed, no structural compromise noted. Her eyes burned. Upstairs, water stains still bloomed across her ceilings, proof that every line was a lie. Slamming the folder shut, Celia stood and began pacing the kitchen. Anger bubbled beneath her skin, but alongside it doubt crept in. Could Samuel really have done this to her deliberately? He was her older brother, the one who helped her move out of her college dorm, the one who had slipped her cash during lean months. Family wasn't supposed to betray you like this. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was her mother. With shaking hands, Celia answered. Celia, her mother's voice was sharp, impatient. Your brother says you've been making a fuss about some leaks? Houses need maintenance. You'll learn. Mom. Celia's voice trembled, half from fury, half from grief. The basement is flooding, the roof is failing, the reports are fake, did you know? A pause stretched long, suffocating. You're overreacting, her mother finally said. Be grateful Samuel got you such a good deal. Not everyone is lucky enough to have family looking out for them. The call ended with Celia staring at her reflection in the black screen of her phone. Her mother knew. Maybe not the full extent, but enough. And she chose silence over protection. Celia's stomach twisted as her thoughts replayed Samuel's smooth sales pitch. This place is solid. You won't have to worry about anything for years. Trust me. The words, once comforting, now reeked of manipulation. The more she thought about it, the more moments resurfaced. His insistence that she skip hiring her own inspector, his eagerness to handle all the paperwork, his constant reminders of how lucky she was to have him in her corner. She opened her laptop again, this time digging deeper. Search after search confirmed her suspicions. The inspectors were ghosts, the certifications forged, the companies fabricated. Even the repair receipts bore handwriting that looked suspiciously alike, the same lazy slant on every signature. She snapped photos of each one, creating a digital folder labeled simply, Evidence. For hours, she sat hunched over the screen, piecing together the web of lies that had trapped her. Each discovery chipped away at the last remnants of denial. By noon, there was no doubt left. Samuel hadn't just made a mistake.
He hadn't overlooked a detail. He had orchestrated this.
Her own brother had conned her into buying a money pit. The betrayal cut deeper than any crack in the foundation. She thought of her father at closing, his eyes cast down, his silence deafening. Did he know too? Or had he been another pawn in Samuel's scheme? Celia shut the laptop, her hands trembling but her jaw set. Last night she had been a victim scrambling to catch rainwater in bowls. This morning she was something else entirely. A woman standing at the edge of truth, staring into a web of lies spun by the very people who should have protected her. And she was ready to start tearing it apart, strand by strand. By mid-morning, exhaustion weighed on Celia's body, but her mind wouldn't rest. She needed someone to confirm what she already feared, that her house was a fraud built on lies. Her phone felt heavy in her hand as she scrolled through contacts, finally landing on one name, Kelly, her oldest friend. The one who had seen her through exams, breakups, and every low point in between. If there was anyone she could trust, it was Kelly. When Kelly arrived, she didn't come alone. Beside her stood a broad-shouldered man with a tool belt slung low around his hips. Celia, Kelly said gently, pressing a hot cup of coffee into her friend's trembling hands. This is Mike. He's a contractor friend who owes me a favor. Mike whistled low as Celia led them from room to room, the rhythmic drip of water echoing like a cruel soundtrack. Bowls and pots dotted the floors, each catching steady streams from above. This isn't storm damage, Mike muttered, crouching near a hallway stain. These leaks have been here a while. Someone just covered them up. In the basement, the truth hit like a wrecking ball. Mike knelt near a patch of suspicious concrete, scraped at it with his pocket knife, and revealed a crumbling facade. Behind it, a deep crack stretched like a scar across the wall. Classic cover job, he said grimly. They slapped fresh cement over the damage, enough to trick an untrained eye or a dishonest inspector. Celia's chest constricted. You mean they knew? Her voice cracked on the words. Mike stood, brushing dust from his knees. Oh, they knew. This isn't the kind of thing you miss. Whoever sold you this house made it look good enough to pass, but they didn't fix a damn thing. Kelly wrapped an arm around Celia's shoulders, pulling her close. Sam did this? She asked quietly. My brother was my realtor, Celia whispered, the truth sour on her tongue. He arranged everything, the inspector, the paperwork, all of it, for a long moment. The only sound was the steady trickle of water seeping across the floor. Then Mike spoke, his tone hard. I've seen flips like this before. It's fraud. Plain and simple. Celia closed her eyes, fighting the wave of nausea rising inside her. Her life savings, 10 years of discipline and sacrifice had been poured into a hollow shell. But as Kelly tightened her grip and Mike pulled out his phone to snap photos, a flicker of strength rose up. She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't overreacting. The truth was right here, staring her in the face. Mike straightened, his expression set. I'll put together a full report. Photos, estimates, the works. You'll want it if you take this to court. Court. The word cut through Celia's fog of despair like a blade. She hadn't allowed herself to think that far ahead, but now the path began to take shape. If Samuel had orchestrated this scam, he wouldn't get away with it, not this time. Kelly squeezed her hand. You don't have to do this alone. We'll help you. Celia looked at her best friend, then at the man who barely knew her but was already documenting the damage on her behalf. For the first time since the storm had begun, she felt less like a victim and more like someone preparing for battle. The leaks, the cracks, the deception, they weren't just problems to endure. They were evidence. And Celia was done being silent. Celia knew she couldn't rely on speculation alone. To prove Samuel's deceit, she needed more than suspicions. She needed hard evidence. Kelly suggested tracking down the previous owner, someone who would know the house's true history. After a long evening of online searches, Celia found a name, Harold Prescott, a retired electrical engineer, according to a local directory. With her stomach twisted in knots, she dialed the number. The voice that answered was weary but polite.
This is Harold, Mr.
Prescott, my name is Celia Andrews. I bought your old house 3 months ago. I need to ask you some questions. A pause, then a sigh. I wondered when this call might come. Come by tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I'll have the paperwork ready. The next day, Celia stood on the porch of a neat blue Craftsman with flower beds carefully tended. Prescott, a silver-haired man with wire-rimmed glasses, opened the door. You look just like your brother, he said softly, but without warmth. Come in. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pipe tobacco and lemon polish. Prescott gestured to a floral sofa but disappeared into his study. Moments later, he returned with a thick manila folder. I kept copies of everything. Habit from decades in corporate America. When your brother approached me, I was upfront about the house's issues. He slid the folder across the coffee table. Celia opened it, her hands trembling. The first document was an insurance letter, stamped with bold red ink. Coverage denied due to foundation compromise and roof deterioration. Dated 14 months before her purchase. She scanned line after damning line, her throat tightening. Prescott tapped a highlighted section. I told Samuel everything, showed him this. He assured me he'd handle it. Her pulse roared in her ears as she flipped to emails. Printouts exchanged between Prescott and someone named Jay Turner at solidfoundationsinspection.com. Recognition sparked. Jeff Turner, she whispered. Samuel's old college roommate. Prescott nodded. Your brother wanted a favorable report. Said it was a family matter. I assumed you knew. Celia's stomach churned. They hadn't just cut corners. They'd fabricated an entire narrative, roping in Samuel's friends to provide falsified certifications. Prescott leaned back, watching her carefully. I thought you were part of it, he admitted. That's why I stayed quiet until now. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. No, he betrayed me too. Prescott's expression softened. Then you'll want these. He handed her more documents. Repair estimates totaling over $90,000, all dated before Samuel listed the property. Foundation stabilization, full roof replacement, electrical rewiring, Each estimate underlined the scale of the deception. I told him the house wasn't marketable without these repairs. He shrugged and said he had other plans. Celia took photo after photo, her phone filling with damning evidence. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've given me everything I need." Prescott nodded gravely. "Be careful, Miss Andrews. Real estate fraud is one thing. Family betrayal? That cuts deeper." Driving home, the folder on the passenger seat felt like a live wire, buzzing with the power of truth. Every page was proof, not just of negligence but of intent. Samuel hadn't been careless, he had knowingly sold her a condemned dream. Back at her house, Kelly and Mike waited. Celia spread the documents across her kitchen table, the same table where Samuel's forged paperwork had once sat. The contrast was striking, real evidence versus counterfeit lies. Mike let out a low whistle. "This is damning. With these records, no one can argue you didn't walk into this blind." Kelly squeezed Celia's hand. "This is bigger than just repairs. This is fraud. You need a lawyer." The word hit with weight. A lawyer. Until now, Celia had been uncovering pieces, still wavering between fury and disbelief, but this folder erased any doubt. Samuel hadn't made mistakes.
He had made choices. That night, Celia barely slept.
She stayed at her kitchen table, organizing Prescott's documents into neat stacks. Insurance denial, repair estimates, fraudulent inspection emails. For the first time, she felt the anger cooling into something sharper, more dangerous: determination. She was no longer drowning in leaks and lies. She was building her case. The next morning, she made the call. James Morgan, a respected real estate attorney in town, agreed to meet her that afternoon. "Bring everything," his assistant instructed. "From what you've described, it sounds like you have a strong case." Celia hung up, staring at the growing pile of evidence before her. 3 months ago, she had toasted champagne with her family in this kitchen, celebrating her victory. Now she was preparing for battle against them. And this time, she wasn't just chasing repairs. She was chasing justice. The cafe was buzzing with mid-morning chatter, the clinking of cups and hum of conversation blending into a backdrop Celia barely registered. She had chosen this place deliberately public enough to keep tempers in check, quiet enough to make sure every word landed. She sat at a corner table, Prescott's documents neatly stacked in a folder before her, her hands clenched around a cup of untouched coffee. First came her father, William, shoulders slumped, eyes tired. He slid into the seat across from her with a weary sigh. "Celia, what is this about?"
He asked, though his tone suggested he already knew.
Before she could answer, her mother swept in, perfume trailing behind her, sunglasses perched on her nose like armor. Samuel followed lost, phone in hand, posture calculatedly casual, though the tension in his jaw betrayed him. "This better be important," Martha said briskly, settling into her chair. "We're supposed to meet the Hendersons at 11:30. Celia didn't respond. Instead, she opened the folder and slid the first document across the table: an insurance denial letter, the one Prescott had highlighted. William's eyes dropped to the page, scanning the bold print. Samuel's face paled. Martha adjusted her sunglasses but said nothing. "I spoke to Mr. Prescott," Celia said evenly. "He gave me copies of everything. The insurance denials, the repair estimates, the emails to Jeff Turner. You all knew the house was unsound." Samuel forced a laugh, but it rang hollow. "Celia, you're misinterpreting things. Old houses always have issues. You got a good deal. We can fix it." "Fix it?" Celia's voice cut through the clatter of the cafe. She pulled out photos Mike had taken of the crumbling foundation beneath the patched concrete. "This isn't a loose shingle or a clogged gutter. The foundation is failing, the roof is rotting, and you knew. You hid it." Her mother leaned forward, voice low and sharp. "We did this for you, Celia. We wanted you to have a home, a chance to build equity, to stop throwing money away on rent. You should be thanking Samuel, not accusing him." "Thanking him?" Celia's hands trembled, but her voice stayed firm. "I put 10 years of savings into this house, everything I had. And you sold me a lie." Samuel's jaw tightened. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be. We can work something out privately. No need to drag lawyers into it." At that, Celia slid another paper across the table: Samuel's email to Jeff Turner, requesting a favorable report, despite known deficiencies. William's head snapped up, eyes wide with dawning horror. Samuel, you wrote this. Samuel's mask cracked, his voice rising despite the cafe's public setting. Dad, it's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Celia interrupted. Fraud. You falsified documents, concealed defects, and conned me into buying a house you couldn't unload on anyone else. For a long moment, silence stretched across the table. Martha clutched her purse, face pinched with fury. Samuel stared at his sister, words failing him for once. And William, her father, who had sat quietly at closing, eyes cast down, looked at his daughter with something new: guilt, recognition, regret. I didn't know it was this bad, he said quietly. I thought we were helping you. No, Celia said, her voice steady now, almost calm. You were helping Samuel. You were helping him dump his problem onto me. Martha slammed her hand against the table, drawing the attention of nearby customers. You wouldn't dare take this outside the family. Celia gathered the papers back into her folder, stood and looked down at them all. You already took it outside the family when you betrayed me. I won't stay silent. As she walked away, William rose halfway from his chair, torn between following her and staying with his wife and son. He hesitated, then sank back down. But his eyes stayed on Celia until the cafe door closed behind her. After the cafe confrontation, Celia knew there was no turning back. The folder of evidence had grown too heavy to carry alone. She needed someone who could transform her pain into a weapon, someone who understood the law. That's how she found herself in the polished office of James Morgan, a seasoned real estate attorney with a reputation for dismantling fraud cases. James listened in silence as Celia laid out everything: the storm, the leaks, the ghost inspectors, the insurance denials, Prescott's testimony, and finally the confrontation with her family. When she finished, her throat raw, James tapped his pen against a yellow legal pad. This, he said, isn't negligence. It's a coordinated scheme, fraudulent misrepresentation, failure to disclose, breach of fiduciary duty. And with your brother's real estate license, that last one is critical. The words landed like anchors, pulling Celia from uncertainty into clarity. So, we can prove it? She asked. James nodded. If what you've brought me holds up, and from what I see we can build an ironclad case. But you have to be prepared. Once we move forward, they'll fight dirty. Expect smear campaigns, character attacks, even threats. Celia thought of her mother's sharp voice at the cafe, Samuel's pale face when she slid the emails across the table. She straightened her spine. I'm ready. From that day forward, her life became a series of meetings, phone calls, and documents. Kelly became her right hand, scanning, filing, and organizing the growing mountain of evidence. Mike completed a full inspection report, complete with photographs of every crack, leak, and patch job. Prescott signed an affidavit detailing his conversations with Samuel. Neighbors provided statements recalling Samuel's promises about the house's rock-solid construction. Piece by piece, the puzzle of betrayal was assembled into something undeniable. But Samuel wasn't idle. Within weeks, Celia began hearing whispers. A coworker pulled her aside at the office. I heard your family's saying you regret buying the house and now you're trying to ruin your brother's career over it. Her stomach dropped. Samuel was poisoning the well, turning the extended family and social circle against her. One night, she opened social media to find her mother's post. Some people forget family sacrifice when chasing money. Sad to see greed tear loved ones apart. Dozens of relatives had commented their support. Not one reached out to her directly. She showed the post to James the next morning. He adjusted his glasses and gave a faint, humorless smile. Smear tactics. Predictable. They want to make you doubt yourself. But remember, we have facts, not whispers. Her father became an unlikely ally. Quietly, he began stopping by with old folders Samuel had left in his home office. In one, Celia found handwritten notes. Roof replacement needed ASAP, foundation unstable, major crack. Do not disclose. The underlined words sent a chill through her. James all but whistled when he saw them. Direct evidence of knowledge and concealment. This is gold. The weeks turned into a rhythm. Work by day, case building by night. Kelly fueled her with coffee and determination. Mike sent updated estimates, the numbers staggering but necessary. Prescott called twice to reassure her he'd testify if needed. And William, her father, slowly shifted from silent guilt to quiet resolve, telling her one evening, "If Samuel wants to lie in court, he'll do it without my help." But with every step forward came new attacks. Samuel filed a complaint with Celia's employer, alleging she had misrepresented her financial history. HR called her in, awkward and apologetic, but she presented James's letter explaining the lawsuit. The matter died, but the damage was clear. Samuel would stop at nothing to discredit her. Late one night, after hours of sorting through files, Kelly asked the question that had been gnawing at Celia's mind. "What if this breaks your family for good?" Celia stared at the papers spread across the table. Photos of mold creeping across ceilings, forged signatures, insurance denials. Lies stacked on lies. She thought of her mother's dismissive voice, her brother's hollow laugh. Then she thought of the stormy night she woke to water dripping on her grandmother's quilt. That was the moment her family had broken her. This was the fight to rebuild herself. "It already broke," Celia said quietly. "Now I'm making sure it doesn't break anyone else." By the time James declared the case file ready, it was a fortress of evidence. Affidavits, reports, photographs, financial records, and Samuel's own damning emails. Celia looked at the thick binder he slid across his desk. Inside it lay months of anguish, transformed into ammunition. "Next step," James said, meeting her eyes. "We file and then we face them in court." Celia exhaled, steady and resolute. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she was standing on solid ground even if she had to build it herself. The courthouse loomed like a fortress as Celia approached, the thick binder of evidence clutched against her chest. Kelly walked on one side, James on the other, his calm presence grounding her as they climbed the stone steps. Inside, the air buzzed with anticipation. Neighbors, extended family, and even Samuel's colleagues had come to witness the showdown. When the bailiff called for order, Samuel entered with Martha at his side.
He wore a sharp suit, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him.
Martha dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, the picture of maternal heartbreak. Their attorney, a silver-haired man with an air of practiced confidence, adjusted his cufflinks and strode forward. "Your Honor," he began, "this case is nothing more than a tragic misunderstanding between siblings." My client, a respected realtor with over 15 years of experience, went above and beyond to help his sister achieve her dream of homeownership. Now she repays him with baseless accusations, driven by buyer's remorse. Celia clenched her fists under the table, but James remained composed. When it was his turn, he rose with quiet authority. "Your Honor, what we have here is not misunderstanding. It is fraud. A deliberate, calculated scheme that exploited familial trust for financial gain." He placed the first exhibit on the projector, side-by-side photographs. On one side, Celia's basement wall, cracked and crumbling beneath peeling paint. On the other, the inspection report signed by Samuel's chosen inspector, claiming no evidence of water intrusion. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Over the next 2 hours, James dismantled Samuel's defense piece by piece. He called Mike, who testified about the patched foundation and deliberate concealment. "In my 20 years as a contractor," Mike stated firmly, "I've never seen such intentional cover-ups. This wasn't oversight. This was deception." Prescott took the stand next. His steady voice carried across the courtroom as he described Samuel's eagerness to buy the property despite its obvious flaws. "I gave him every document: insurance denials, repair estimates. He assured me he'd handle it before reselling. I never imagined he'd trick his own sister." Samuel's attorney tried to object, to reframe the testimony as opinion, but James countered with the signed documents, each one dated and damning. The judge allowed them all into evidence. Then came William. Celia's father walked slowly to the stand, the weight of divided loyalties etched into his face. Martha's eyes burned into him, silently pleading, but he kept his gaze forward. "I found Samuel's notes," he said quietly, holding up a folder. They outlined every major defect: roof replacement, foundation cracks, electrical hazards. He wrote, "Do not disclose." I didn't want to believe it, but I can't deny what I saw. For the first time, Celia felt her father's voice steady behind her, and it gave her strength. The final blow came when James called the inspector whose name appeared on Celia's original report. The man, recovering from heart surgery during the dates listed, testified flatly, "That is not my signature. I never inspected that property." The room erupted in murmurs. Samuel's confident mask finally cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his lawyer scrambled. Judge Harmon leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Mr. Andrews, this court has been presented with overwhelming evidence, falsified documents, forged signatures, concealed defects, and testimony from multiple credible witnesses. Do you have anything to say before I issue judgment?" Samuel opened his mouth, but no words came. Martha gripped his arm, whispering furiously, but the judge raised a hand. Silence fell. "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Celia Andrews," Judge Harmon declared. "Damages in the amount of $200,000 are awarded, covering repair costs, diminished property value, and punitive damages. Furthermore, this case is referred to the State Real Estate Commission and the District Attorney's Office for investigation into professional misconduct and potential criminal fraud." The gavel struck, sharp and final. Relief washed over Celia in a wave so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. Kelly squeezed her hand, tears brimming. James allowed himself the faintest smile. William bowed his head, shoulders sagging as though a long-held burden had finally dropped. Outside, the autumn sun shone bright on the courthouse steps. Reporters clustered, neighbors whispered, and relatives avoided her eyes. Samuel and Martha hurried away, their once practiced confidence shattered. For the first time since the stormy night of betrayal, Celia stood tall, her binder of evidence now transformed into proof of her resilience. "This isn't just about me," she told Kelly as they descended the steps. "It's about making sure they never do this to anyone else." And in that moment, Celia knew. She hadn't just survived her family's betrayal. She had conquered it. Celia wins a $200,000 judgment. Samuel's license is suspended and criminal investigations loom. But her victory isn't just financial, it's personal. She sells the cursed house, buys a new one built on honesty and solid foundations, and begins volunteering to protect first-time buyers from scams. The storm that once symbolized betrayal now marks her rebirth. Justice wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her power and ensuring no one else falls victim to the same deception.